Rather than delay a show, which we've done, it's been like almost 2 months since we put another show in the air, we thought it was about time to just grab a camera and do an outdoor shoot. So that's why we're here this afternoon. Most of the show for today will be highlights from a convention that we all went to recently, RebelCon 98, which was held in beautiful Taunton, Massachusetts.
Beautiful downtown Taunton.
Yeah, it's a fan-run convention. It was a lot of fun.
Home of the Quickie Burger.
Really? I didn't have one.
No, not at all.
So that's where most of the bulk of the show.
Can you say gullible?
Gullible.
Enough already. Most of the show will be highlights from RebelCon 98. So let's move on from there.
The deal is I'm at RebelCon 98, and we're going to be speaking with somebody who's selling and wearing one of the Warrior Woman costumes, which is basically the theme of this wonderful convention. And you are?
Athene.
Okay, and what made you decide to come dressed up as a Warrior Woman, and how long have you been doing this for?
Oh, goodness. 5 or 6 years since my first Total Confusion convention back a bunch of years ago. And before that, I was doing it at King Richard's Fair in about 93.
Okay. Well, how did you go about designing your costume? It looks very good.
Well, I have a friend, Beowulf, who makes costuming, and he came up with the idea of making the plate mail out of plastic material because it molds to the body. And from there, it was just coming up with the design. I wanted something like a bikini design that, you know, would be attractive yet not too revealing, and hence this design was born. Got a lot of influences from different fantasy artists, like Vallejo and such as that.
What made you to get into the whole fantasy art thing?
I have no idea. It's just one of those things that's born into you, I suppose.
Cool. I was noticing some of the costumes that you have in the back. You want to show off some of those, and you can talk a little bit about them?
I'll show you my favorite. I can't even wear them there for guys, but this pair of pants that was made by my friend Beowulf. And they're all hand-laced along the seams, the elk horn buttons, and velvet inside. And that's my absolute favorite. And these boots, he also made those. They could either be worn rolled over, or it's just this one, just straight up. If you get the legs for it, you can do that. What else we got? Oh, got this Wayfarer's shirt, jerkin. Yeah, fringe jerkin. That's actually it's a vintage piece from the '60s.
A lot of detail that goes into this stuff, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Costuming isn't the main thing that I do, but I do sell a bit of it, so I carry it.
Okay, and you have a booth around here that people can come and see more of your stuff?
Yeah, over at the Taunton Flea Market at the Taunton Exposition Center. I'm in the antique room. It's called Valhalla. Yeah, it's all painted green. It's really cool.
That's cool for people who want to go and check out more of that stuff. The Taunton Flea Market is located on Route 4.
WorldCon was held the first weekend in August in Baltimore just recently, and the WorldCon also has the Hugo Awards there. A few people that won Hugos this year is Bob Eggleton for Best Artist. This is the 4th award in 5 years for Bob. Congratulations, Bob. Another person that won is Mike Resnick, who wrote 43 Antarian Dynasties in Asimov's in the December issue. A list of other people that won awards is going to be scrolling over the screen in just a second.
who's usually behind the camera, had a chance to interview Joe Jusko, world-famous artist at RebelCon. So here's a look at that particular clip.
Con 98, and I'm here with Joe Jusko. And he has a few projects in the works, and he'd like to discuss them with you. What's up and coming? What's in the future?
Oh, geez, a whole bunch of miscellaneous stuff. I'm working on that continuing feature for Frank Pizzetta Fantasy Illustrated, which is, yes, this is one of the pages to the upcoming chapter that will be out, I guess August 12th it hits the stands. It's a story that I developed about 10 years ago for Archie Goodwin when he was doing the Epic line up at Marvel, and didn't feel that Marvel was going to really promote it, you know, because since it wasn't their character, so I kind of held on to it for a while. And when the Frazetta guys called me up last year and asked me if I had anything that I wanted to do for the magazine, I remembered the story and kind of pulled it out of mothballs and, you know, tweaked it a little bit. And now we're just going to do. I'm serializing it now. You know.
Now, most people recognize a lot of your stuff from covers and a lot of the Tarzan, the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. But lately, you seem to be doing a lot of sequential work. I mean, what does it take to put out 32 pages, 22 pages of a storyline?
Well, the fact that it's fully painted just adds considerable time to it, which is one of the reasons why I haven't done much of it. My attention span is really short, so I kind of like doing, you know, single pieces and putting everything into that single piece and moving on to something else and doing something completely different. But recently, it's just, you know, you get the urge to do something different every now and then, and people have been asking me to do sequential work for years, you know, and I'm essentially a comic book fan. That's why I got into this in the first place.
Okay. Well, the Vampirella storyline, the Bloodlust, is just incredible, and I understand you're going to package it all together.
It's coming out as a collector's edition hardcover with a new chapter, sort of an epilogue of what happens in the future, because the book actually ended with Adam sort of like facing this army from hell, and it kind of leaves it open as to what happened after that, and we're going to kind of clear all that up.
Okay, so now you have a sculpture in the works here. I know we have a picture of it, which may be hard to see from where you are at home with the camera. I don't know if our cameraman's going to be able to get it. I'll hold it up for him. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a barbarian sculpture, sword and sorcery sculpture of a northern barbarian. It could be Conan, could not be Conan. I guess since I've done Conan, people will mostly associate that with me. It's sculpted by a guy named Sean Nagel, who's just an incredible sculptor. He's done a lot of figures for toy companies, and he did the Ash figure, and a bunch of Star Wars statues and model kits and stuff like that. He's a brilliant sculptor, and he's really captured my drawing and painting just, I mean, to the T. I can't wait to see this piece in full production.
So now you're doing some work for Chaos Comics?
No. I was working on a trading card set for Chaos, and that kind of fell through.
Okay, so don't expect that.
Don't expect that to be out anytime soon.
What about a collaboration with Bernie Wrightson we were just discussing?
Yeah, Bernie's doing the new Punisher series for Marvel Knights, the subsidiary of Marvel that Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada are running. And we thought it'd be kind of cool, you know, Bernie and I have been talking for years about kind of working together if we collaborated on the covers. So I'm painting the covers over Bernie's pencils.
So you guys are a little bit of a contrast of style, as you noted.
Totally.
So how does it feel to, is it 50-50?
It's most people who see this stuff, when they hear we're working together, because we're so diametrically opposed style-wise, you know, he's very stylized and I'm very realistic, kind of think it's something that really shouldn't work. But when they see the final pieces, actually, they're kind of surprised, because I retained a lot of Bernie in there.
I mean, if you can get a shot of this guy here, you want to talk about some hyper-realism that's appearing in the Frazetta magazine. It's just absolutely incredible. I mean, of course, I posed for that one. But anyway.
I had you in mind all the way.
What was that?
I actually have a couple of copies of some of the Bernie covers that I've been working on.
Okay.
These are...
can you get a shot of those? Yeah. Just hold them up.
Little chintzy Xeroxes, but give you an idea what they look like. So you can see that it definitely has my technique all over the painting end of it, but I've kept all Bernie's stylized folds and his draping and you know, his sense of layout and mood to the pieces, and it seems to be a really happy combination. Bernie's ecstatic with it, which is the thing that works best for me.
So how do you like RebelCon 98?
It's a lot of fun. It's the people are incredible. They're really receptive, you know, and I like getting out and doing shows, especially smaller shows, because you get to interact more with the people. You know, large shows like Chicago and San Diego, there's so many people, and you're so busy signing things that you don't get to look up sometimes and see who you're signing stuff for. You see belt buckles all day.
Well, we hope to have you back again. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.
Back to the guys in the studio.
Sci-Fi Library Pick of the Month this month, I've chosen Alternate Warriors, which is a collection of short stories by many varied artists and, well, not artists, but writers, who are artists in their own right, Mercedes Lackey, David Gerald, Michael Koob McDowell, Judith Tarr, Esther Friesner, Joe Haldeman, and Mike Resnick, among many others. They are all short vignettes and takes on warfare involving famous people out of the past. On the front is a picture of Gandhi holding a rocket launcher as if he were a violent sort, which of course he wasn't. These are all just alternate realities. And it's a very amusing collection of stories. Some of them are very good. Some of them are not so good. You're going to have that with any collection you pick up. But my favorite story so far is Al Einstein, Nazi Smasher by Leah Hernandez. And it looks at Albert Einstein as if he were a super spy, a James Bond type during World War II. It's a great collection of stories. It's still out there. You can find it in any bookstore. Just ask. And I really liked it. That's my pick for the Essential Library of the Month.
That's edited by Mike Resnick.
Yes, it is.
He also has alternate tyrants, alternate Kennedys, alternate... There's a whole list of different things, and...
Well, Mike knows his stuff. He's quite talented. He's a good editor, and he's a nice guy.
Yeah, there's a reason why he's won 17 Hugos. Count them. I think that's 17.
I think so.
And he's been nominated at least 17 times.
He's probably been nominated.
Maybe it's nominated.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's multi-talented. My pick is Chris Rush's Alien Influences. This is a really great book. One of the best books that I've read in a while. It's about what happens with children who have committed a crime, although they don't believe that it's a crime that they've committed. And it's just a matter of, because they've been influenced by aliens, their perceptions are a little skewed. And just what happens to these children after they've been ostracized from society and the problems that they have. And it's an extremely well-written book. It's definitely suggested you go out looking for it. Chris Rush is also in Jay's book pick there. And Chris used to be the editor of Fantasy and Science Fiction. She's also helped, along with her husband, Dean Wesley Smith, runs a workshop, which I attended a few months ago, and they're just a great pair. I also would like to recommend readings. If you want short stories, you really should be picking up Analog. There's a copy of Analog, Fantasy and Science Fiction, I'm sorry, and Asimov's. They're really the top magazines out there at the moment. And if Muck will stop gagging over there, you really should be looking at them. At least pick them up they're in the newsstand, and give them a try.
And you can even find a dictionary with the reference One of the great things about going to conventions like RebelCon is that you get to meet and talk with some of the stars of some of the great media productions that are currently taking place, or some of the past media productions like Star Trek, Next Generation. In particular, Mark, much to my chagrin, got to interview Alexandra Tidings, who plays Athena on Hercules and Xena. And I really wish I could have done that interview, because I really like her character. She's one of my favorites, and she really spices up the program when she's on.
And she's really pretty.
Yeah, she's really pretty.
As is my wife.
Covered that one well.
That had nothing to do with my enviousness of the interview.
Yeah, she was a lot of
fun.
She was a lot of fun.
It looked like you had a real good time.
Yeah, and she had told us before the interview started that this was the very first television interview that she's ever done. She's never done a TV interview.
So this is a Sci-Fi Journal first.
A first premiere. So here's the interview with Alexandra Tidings. Enjoy. Hi, we're at RebelCon 1998 with Alexandra Tidings, who plays the role of Aphrodite on Xena and Hercules. Hi.
Hi,
Thanks
thanks.
for interviewing. Really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and how did you get into acting?
Right, okay. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and lived there my whole life until I went to Brown. Went to Brown all 4 years, graduated and everything. And I started acting when I was really young. I'd always loved it. And then when I was in college, I decided to become a film major, mostly because that was the one department where I could do as many different things as I wanted to do. Like I could, sort of study some visual arts and study some theory and study, kind of be as broad as I wanted to, which is what I really wanted to do at that point. And through making films and being in my friends' films, we all kind of just put each other in our movies because that's who was available, right. And we knew, I sort of realized how serious I was about acting, and by the time I graduated, had decided to make that my life and put my stuff in my car and drove to Los Angeles.
Okay, now how'd you land the role of Aphrodite?
I auditioned. My agent called me and said, they want you to come in and read for Aphrodite. I had already met the casting director because I had done a guest spot in Vanishing Sun, which was another Universal action show, and she cast that one also. So she called me in, and I read the script and was completely confused because I'd never seen Hercules, and I thought it was mostly an action show. Right. So when I saw this sort of quirky, funny material, I called my agent and I said, "Is this a comedy? This is a 1-hour show. Is this a comedy?" And right. She said, "Just follow your instincts and do what you want." And so I did it, and I got the part.
Okay. Now, how did you get to play the role of Aphrodite from that perspective, as far as it being a funny, for lack of a better term, almost a Valley Girl type character? Why did you go up with that certain take? Well,
that's what was written. I mean, bitchin' and totally and all that kind of language was written like that. And also, I looked back in Greek history and Greek mythology and stuff to see sort of what context Aphrodite was in culturally and historically, and some of it was really useful. Like there's some stories of her being really spiteful and vengeful and just so utterly vain. And then there's other things that weren't necessarily so useful for her character. I mean, stuff about her just being so lovely and beautiful and wonderful, and that's not really the character that much. She's a little more of a troublemaker. And I sort of thought about some styles, like I'm not a huge Mae West fan, but I thought that she was kind of appropriate to think about in terms of Aphrodite, and she was certainly helpful to think about when I got up in that costume, and had to sort of pretend like, of course that's the way I should be dressed, Right.
It's like that's how I was always supposed to be dressed.
Right,
yeah. It's like she expects you to bow down before her and so forth. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite episode, either from Xena or Hercules?
Right. I think right now One Foul Day is my favorite episode because that's the one where I played Catherine the pig. And that was just so much fun, and it was pretty recently, so it's sort of fresh in my memory. But I always loved The Apple because it was my first. And Love Takes a Holiday was also so much fun to do. Yeah.
What are your plans for the future besides Aphrodite? Anything in the works, or?
Yeah, well, I'm actually starting my own little production company. Like I mentioned earlier, that I have a degree in filmmaking, and so I've always wanted to kind of maybe follow in Jodie Foster's footsteps a little bit, and so I decided to go ahead and start taking baby steps towards that. And we're producing our first short film this fall, and I'm so excited about it. We're actually in pre-production now.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are there any chances that you might be able to direct an episode of Xena or Hercules? Is that on the back burner or on your wish list or something?
It's a vague wish. It's not a big dream right now, because my directing desires are really about directing conceiving my own projects and directing my own things. So so that's not exactly like number one on the priorities, but I think it would certainly be fun. Although, God, it looks like they have a hard time. Because they just try to do so much in such a small amount of time that it seems like those poor directors.
Now, we were talking about this before we started filming. How long do you have to stay in New Zealand and back and forth in the States and so forth?
I usually go down for about 2 weeks every time I go down. Some of it just works out differently for different people because of the scheduling. I usually only go down for one episode at a time, which is also maybe because of my contract. I think some people contract to do a certain number of episodes at a time, and I only usually ever contract to do one.
which leaves me open to audition for other things and stuff like that.
Right.
So I usually go down for 2 weeks, and then I'll be back for a couple of months, and then I'll go down for 2 more weeks and be back for a few more months, and kind of go back and forth a little bit. But certainly more time in the States, which is home.
Right. Now, and home is Los Angeles for
Yep.
you?
Yep, it is now.
But you're originally from D.C., you had said. And you liked all 4 years at Brown University.
I did. I liked Brown a lot. Brown was really fun. It was pretty much a perfect school for me because it was full of really smart, motivated, interesting students, and also the university itself sort of had enough respect for us and allowed us enough freedom to really explore what we wanted to do, and that's what I think I needed, and it was great. You know, I really, really appreciated their approach to academics in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when do they start filming the new season of Xena or Hercules?
I have no idea what their schedule is, but I know I'm going back this fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to see Aphrodite again.
Yes, you will. I assume it'll be Aphrodite. Maybe it'll be Catherine. I don't know. Or maybe that other queen. I have no idea,
Yeah.
but probably Aphrodite, because it usually is. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You should check out Providence sometime if you're in the area, because they've redone downtown.
I heard. I saw it
beautiful.
in something about Mary. I didn't recognize it.
Mhm.
I was like, it's so pretty.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's
And they
really
couldn't
nice.
have dressed that whole set. You know, they can't dress the whole city.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really nice. You check it out sometime. And
Cool,
we'll give you
okay.
a tour of the city and stuff. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Okay, back to the studio.
Now see, this is the good thing about watching Sci-Fi Journal. We're bringing you all the interviews that you would have gotten had you gone to RebelCon. But you didn't go, did you? No. So, we're taking you right where everybody else wanted to be. Mike Lopes, who's behind the camera as we speak.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike. Did an interview with Gary Gianni, who has, prior to this work that we're going to be covering right now, is known for some of his great black and white illustration work. He did a piece for Batman before that was just fabulous. And now he's put together a book covering the adventures of Solomon Kane. And it's a collection of, approximately 80 black and white painting-style illustrations and 8 color plates that are just gorgeous. They're the type of paintings that just leap off the page when you look at them. Well, Mike covered the interview with Gary Gianni, so let's take a look at that right now.
Okay, hi, we're at RebelCon 98 up in the art room where some wonderful pieces are on display, and a few that I have behind me here are from this gentleman, Gary Gianni.
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 You've been having trouble with names today, but that's all right.
That's my fault. You know, I've been corrected quite a few times. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this project, that's your most recent piece?
Well, I'll be glad to. I've been working on this project for about a year and 3 months now, and it's involving the Tales of Solomon Kane, which was one of Robert E. Howard's other characters. I'm sure we all know him from Conan, but not as many people know about Solomon Kane. I think this Solomon Kane is finally going to have his day in the sun. This company in England is producing this book, and it's going to be a handsome package with 200 illustrations and 8 oil paintings in it.
Now, the 200 illustrations are what I'm most familiar with your work, the black line work.
Yes, yes.
Now, that just complements the text as we go along? Or?
Yeah, little spot illustrations here and there, or at times they may be full pages. I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll have some of the pages are full illustrations. Well, there are pages that are full illustrated black and white pages.
Okay.
But for the most part, they're little spot illustrations running through the text, vignettes. And then there are the color plates, which I have 2 of them here today.
That's founder. Now, a lot of people may recognize your name from comic book work. What other characters have you worked with?
I've worked on probably the longest running thing was The Shadow, which was a 7-issue miniseries at Dark Horse. And I write and draw a backup feature in the comic Hellboy, Mike Mignola's Hellboy, and I do a feature called Corpus Monstrum.
And you mentioned that's up for an Eisner this year.
Yeah, the Christmas issue.
Yeah, the Christmas special.
Is up for an Eisner. What else would you like to know?
Well, recently I recognized your name. walking right by, I didn't even know it was your work, was you did a story in the Batman Black and White collection.
Yeah,
Tell us a bit about that one.
I'm very proud of that because it's one of the few more mainstream jobs that I've done, and that was in the Batman Black and White collection. It was written by Archie Goodwin, and it was a story called Heroes, and we won the Eisner Award for it.
Incredible. That was one of the best ones out of the storyline, in my humble opinion. Well, are there any other things after the Solomon that you're working on, or something in the future we can look forward to in the comic books?
I may do more Corpus Monstrum, or I may take another one of these projects which would tie me up for another year and a half or so. These things are like whaling voyages. You know, you sign on the dotted line and you go out to sea for a year and a half or something.
Now, you said this is being done in Europe. Who's the publisher? Like, where can we find this?
The publisher is Wandering Star, and I'm sure anyone who might be interested in this thing, I think there's a phone number in this brochure. I would imagine I could.
Yeah, we can take a few of your brochures and we'll show them on the air. That would be great.
Yeah, and all that information is in these things. So.
Okay.
I'm very proud of this book, so I hope your viewers, if they like my work, maybe they might be interested in picking this up.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Okay. One reason I'd like your viewers to see these things is because my stuff is generally produced in color, and I feel this work stands on its own in black and white. And so the chance for a few shots of it and as I intended it to be.
People just don't get to see the originals.
Well,
and that's what they are to me.
For the most part, people like color on the art, at least a large majority. But if I had my druthers, all those things I've done would have been produced in black and white. And so here's a chance, you can just pan over all this stuff. Indiana Jones and a couple of pages from Corpus Monstrum here, a page from the Batman Black and White, which was produced in black and white, and 2 shadow pages. And I just think color is a little redundant on this work. It really doesn't need it, but nevertheless, that's what helps sell comics.
Well, it must be tough for the colorist, considering the detail that you go through.
Yeah, it's very tough for the colorists, because they have a hard time keeping it from getting muddy because of all the line work. The color behind that gets muddy and dark right away. But people like things in color. I mean, that's why you see colorized versions of King Kong and...
I think it's a sacrilege in some ways.
Well, I teach illustration, and a lot of art students, they're not even interested. These are art students, and they're not even interested in black and white movies, for example. So, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but black and white has its own intrinsic beauty, and as much as I like working in color, as you can see in the paintings, black and white is equally as, valid.
Well, definitely. If anyone ever gets the chance to check out some of the independent comics, some of the cell phone stuff that's just in black and white, I think it truly, a lot of people can capture just as much with just the black and white line.
Yeah, I agree.
Than, people do with a myriad of computer coloring and overlays and...
So, you viewers out there, go over to your set and turn down your color.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go into some sci-fi news and reviews and so forth. And there's just a couple of things that I wanted to start off with. Ethan Phillips, who plays the character Neelix on Star Trek Voyager, is going to be appearing at the Holiday Inn at the Crossings on Sunday, October 25th, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
He's fun.
He's a lot of fun. He's a good guy. Infinite Visions, professional convention company, is providing Neelix for Rhode Island. And if you want any more information, you can contact them. Their website is www.ivisions.com. Just make sure you put hyphen between I and Visions. And
did you say when he was coming?
Yeah, October 25th.
Okay, is there a snail mail they can write to for that, or?
I don't know if there is or not. There might be. There's an information hotline if you want to call them. It's area code 508-896-7448. If you want to give them a call, they can give you all the information on that. Yeah, I think I'm going to go. We'll try to get an interview with this guy.
That'd be nice if they could.
We'll beat out Barry Cook for that interview. That sounds good.
You know who else is going to be around, kind of, sort of, up at MIT? Mike Resnick, who we've been talking about earlier, is going to be doing a reading at MIT on November 19th. I know I'm going to be trying to get up there and see him. And it would be nice if, I don't know if we can get an interview or not, but if somebody else wants to come along to be my camera person, we might be able to. Mike is a character. That's the best way to really describe Mike. He's got the best anecdotes, and he can make just about anything be very interesting and funny. And, you know, if you can get the chance to go up there and see him, I definitely recommend it. Being an auxiliary wife, I'm definitely going to be going there.
An auxiliary wife. I'm not touching that. I don't even want to know.
It'd be nice if you could collect auxiliary alimony.
I got to touch his rocket.
We ain't going there.
That's enough of that one, Ed. Back to you.
Jay, what do you have to review as far as...
You know, I don't have so much to review, but have you guys caught the new Godzilla series on Fox, the kids' animated series? It's better than the movie.
It is.
It's great. It really is. I mean, a lot of people are going to say, well, that wasn't hard, but...
it picks up where the movie left off.
It picks up where the movie left off. You actually like these characters a lot better than the ones in the movie. You like Godzilla. It's back to the old fun Godzilla where he stomps other monsters.
Yeah, the monsters are back.
That's a lot of fun. A series that is probably, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, it's probably going to be really popular, but it looks to me like the old Super Marionation stuff, is that, I can't even think of it, Brats of the something...
Oh, Brats of the Nebula or something like
Brats
that.
of the Dark Nebula or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It looks like a combination of computer animation and the old marionette style stuff. The kids are probably going to love it. It looks really stupid to me.
It does.
But the kids are probably going to love it a lot.
One thing that I caught just flipping through the channels was an animated series called War Planets. And it's based on the toys by Trendmasters that have been around for a couple of years.
Really?
It's all...
A cartoon based on a toy?
On a toy.
That's a new idea.
I know. I never heard of that one before.
So.
Can you say Ninja Turtles?
Well, actually, they were a cartoon before the toy.
True. That's true. But this is a lot of fun. It's all computer animation like Reboot and Beast Wars and some of the others that are out there, but it's really well done. It's on channel 56 right now on Saturday mornings. If your local cable station is able to carry channel 56, catch it Saturday mornings at 7.
Sounds good to me. I caught the season... I did not catch the season opener yet for Buffy. That's... As we're talking, it's this week, the week that we're taping, which is, of course, it's coming up the first week of October. And since this is an October show, I think it's very appropriate to mention something that we did. The Science Fiction Club, Rhode Island Science Fiction Club last year, took a trip to the Haunted Labyrinth, which was put on in Cranston. It's put on Cranston every year.
Right. And
I got to tell you, for a group of kids putting on a haunted house, this was excellent. It was a lot of fun. They did a great job. It wasn't that expensive, and I'd have to give it a thumbs up for their presentation.
Right.
It's a great show. I don't know. I'm not allowed to say the cost for it anyway. If I did know it, but just look for the billboards and the signs. The Haunted Labyrinth it's really great. There's another one coming up. There's going to be a haunted park type of function going on at the old Rocky Point Park location. It's going to open up every night at 7 o'clock, and it starts October 1st and runs through Halloween. And another one that's coming up.
Can I make an added, in addition to that, Mike Velarde, who is a member of our club, is helping to design or paint the setup for the one at Rocky Point.
Right. He's got a lot to do with the setup for I can't, the name of it escapes me, but it's like the Haunted Park or something. You'll see signs for that all over the place. There is also going to be at Champlain Scout Reservation in Cranston, the Boy Scouts are putting on a haunted camp, which has, I believe this is the 4th year in a row now for the haunted camp, and it's been getting bigger and bigger every year. And I'd just like to give the Boy Scouts a plug. It's an organization near and dear to my heart. And if you go to that, you're supporting a good cause. Again, we're not allowed to say how much it costs, but if you contact the Boy Scouts of America at Providence headquarters, I'm sure they'll give you all the information you need about that. Anybody else with anything?
I did see Blade slipping into movies now.
Mike saw it also.
Yeah, it was okay. I expected a lot. Getting some dissent in the audience here.
Mike didn't like it.
No, I expected a lot more. It's way too violent, violent in ways where it really didn't need to be violent. I mean, okay, yes, I know he's a vampire hunter and he's supposed to slash and hack, but it was more than necessary. It was obviously geared toward 13-year-old males who don't care about plot or consistency.
But have lots of cash and testosterone.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry if I'm insulting any 13-year-olds. It had its moments. There were a few things that were good, but it wasn't consistent enough, and it really, I expected a lot more.
Seemed to stray from the plot line that they had inferred in the ads and things.
Yeah, and you could just see the Nintendo game that they were going to be shooting off for Christmas. I mean, it had no more plot than in it than one of those type of games. So.
Speaking of Nintendo, I'm glad you brought that up. Parents watching, if you have a kid who's into video games, boy or girl, there is a trend that is coming out now. It was the #1 hot seller in Japan. It looks like it's going to be blowing off the shelves. If you can find them in the stores now, I suggest that you grab them. It's a game unit for the Game Boy. It's 2 cartridges, and it's called Pokemon. And what Pokemon are these little creatures that inhabit a certain planet where humans have gone and colonized. And what the object of the game is you travel all throughout the game and you capture the different types of Pokemon and you train them, and they compete in little mock battles against other Pokemon. The kids at schools are starting to pick them up. From what I understand, they're very, very hot. There's already a cartoon show on 6 days a week, and I believe it's on the WB, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on WB.
It's on WB. It's Japanimation, which is eye candy to begin with. Some of the animations are very good. Some of the creatures are a little hokey, but you get that with different cultures. The animation is a lot of fun to watch, and the storyline is still, it strays a little bit, but there's something in it even for the adults if you're watching it along with your kids. It's not real violence. The bad guys in it are goofballs, and they mess up, and so it's not something bad for the kids to watch. And as I say, I think it's going to be a real hot item this year at Christmas time. So if you see them in the stores and your kids have a Game Boy unit and they're into that kind of gaming, you should probably grab them before they're gone.
Good. Yeah, I've seen commercials for them. Is that the one with the bus driver?
The bus driver, yeah, who squeezes them all into a Game Boy unit.
Game Boy unit?
Yeah.
That's cool. All right, is that about it for sci-fi news, I think?
I can't think of anything else that's coming out.
Going back to RebelCon, since most of our show is about that, while I was at RebelCon, somebody from Wizards of the Coast was there, representatives from Wizards of the Coast. They were introducing their new game systems based on Xena and Hercules and another series called C-23, and I had a chance to interview one of the representatives from Wizards of the Coast who showed us a little bit about the game mechanics. So if we want to take a look at that clip, we'll take a look at it. Wizards of the Back at RebelCon 98, we're talking with Mike from Wizards of the Coast.
How you doing?
I would love to have this guy's job. Working for Wizards of the Coast is awesome. Today they're introducing 3 different type of customizable card games. We're taking a look at Hercules, Xena, and what they're playing right now is
C-23.
Jim Lee. Tell us a little bit about this game.
The idea behind C-23 is kind of Starship Troopery. You've seen this before. It's a post-apocalyptic world. There's insects on the surface, insect people, and underneath the surface are human beings. They're warring for the surface, who's going to get control of the world. The idea behind the game is that you have a universal format for playing. Arc System Games is what it's called. Arc System is very basic. Rudimentary rules. You can learn this game in 3 minutes. If you played other card games, you can learn it in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Xena, Hercules, and C-23 all use exactly the same format. So once you learn how to play one game, you know how to play all 3.
Okay.
If you meet somebody who has a Hercules deck and you have a Xena deck, you can play together.
All right.
In this particular game, each of us are vying for control of the surface world, and we're playing the bug people and we're playing the humans. Jim Lee, the creator of a whole bunch of different comics for Image Comics, gave us the idea and took this and ran with it. His people have contributed all the art. It's a very fast-moving game, and anybody can learn to play this.
Okay, so why don't you show us a little bit of the mechanics? John Chase, one of our members here.
Okay. It's really simple. You have what are called resources, which you put in play to help pay for other cards. I'm done. You use these resources to bring characters into play, and the characters come out and pretty much fight your battles for you. You bring out the insects, you bring out the humans, they go to war for you. The objective is to run your opponent out of cards. Constantly attacking your opponent's deck, hoping that your opponent won't bring out characters to stop you from attacking his or her deck, and you got to discard one for this. And the objective then is to run them out of cards, which is about to happen to me now. Are you going to attack with a scorpion?
Yep.
Alright, cost me 3 cards. This game plays really, really fast. If you're familiar with Vampire the Eternal Struggle or Battletech, you'll know exactly what's going on here. If you have any familiarity with Magic, you'll recognize why you're using your resources. Done. How they're functioning for you. It's pretty much a game that anybody who has played trading card games will get so quickly.
Okay. Any expansions planned for this?
Expansions are planned for both C23 and Xena. Hercules is still under discussion. Xena has 2 of them in the works right now.
Now, if it's the same type of game system, can you play a C23 deck and a Hercules deck, for example?
Absolutely. What you have to do if you want to mix and match your cards, you don't need to tap the page to attack with this. If you want to mix and match your cards, you need to get those card sleeves that have universal backs on them, that have the black backs. That way you can put your Xena cards and your C23 cards and your Hercules cards all in the same deck.
Okay.
Nobody will know which cards are which because you can't see the backs of them.
Right.
And then you can have Hercules pop out in the same deck with a bunch of insect people. Adds for some real variety to the play environment.
Makes it interesting, too.
Makes it much more exciting. And these have been played this way. We encourage people to play them that way.
Now, does Wizards of the Coast plan on offering any tournaments on these games?
Yes, in fact, that's going on right now. I don't know if you're familiar with Arena League.
Right.
Arena is for Magic. Well, now we're having the Arc Allies, and Arc Allies ties into Arena League. We're sending out promotional material and prizes to retailers, encouraging them to get these Arc system games going so that they have an opportunity to bring people into their stores, play test the games in their environment, give stuff out that Wizards of the Coast gives them. Hopefully it'll work just like Arena does, and I know you can get really good stuff playing Magic in Arena. I'm betting you're going to be able to get really good stuff from Arc Systems as well.
Okay, so we have Hercules, Xena, and C23. They're in your local comic book stores and hobby shops. Check them out. Go to the stores and buy some decks right now. Thanks a lot. Appreciate
Hey, thanks for having us here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hope you don't lose there.
And that was also at RebelCon, as we were saying earlier. Calvin, while he was there, had an interview with a gentleman who's opening a museum of horror, and I believe it's going to be based in Connecticut, isn't it?
Yep.
Museum of Horror, and this guy has got some great stuff. I don't know how he gets his connections, but he's got some great props, and you're going to see them in this segment right now.
Con 98, and in front of the camera right now, it's Colton Hull, who has a museum called the Witches Dungeons Classic Horror Museum, which he's been doing since 13, and he has a very interesting story to tell. Hello, how are you?
How you doing? Well, I started the Witch's Dungeon back in 1966 as an outgrowth of my interest in the classic horror films and also the artistry of the movie makeup. And primarily what I do for a living is I'm a freelance illustrator, but I also do makeup and prop work for TV commercials and for some films. And I've been fortunate enough over the years to know a lot of the great makeup artists such as John Chambers and Dick Smith. And I guess you might say it's in the blood because my great-uncle was Henry Hull, who was the Werewolf of London in 1935, and my great-aunt was Josephine Hull, who was in Arsenic and Old Lace on Broadway with Boris Karloff, and then in films with Cary Grant, and also in Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. But I brought a few of the original props with me here. This is a life cast of Glenn Strange taken when he did Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and next to him what you see is the life cast with the makeup applied, which this was a casting that was used for Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein for the final sequence on the pier where the monster was set fire to. And for some reason they couldn't get Glenn Strange to do that shot, so they made a dummy of Glenn Strange for that. And right here you see one of the original golden idols that was used in Raiders of the Lost Ark. This was used in the long shots, and you can see on the bottom where it was screwed to the pedestal because the whole set vibrated, if you remember the film. And so up until the point where Harrison Ford actually took the idol off the pedestal, they had to have it screwed to it, otherwise it would have toppled over. And what a lot of people don't realize, since you've never seen it really up close, she's giving birth. This was a fertility goddess, and that's one aspect that doesn't really come out in the film, and that's why the natives were so angry at Harrison Ford for stealing their fertility goddess. But that part of it seemed to get lost somewhere in the editing of the film. Now, right next to it here, we have one of the original dummy heads of Linda Blair from The Exorcist, and this was an alternate head that was used for the sequence where her head was turning around. And then next to her, we have General Urko from Planet of the Apes. This is from the original film, based on the actual makeup appliance that was used for the film, but applied to a dummy head here. And this will give you an example of what the makeup actually looked like. And this was a piece that was used for Island of Dr. Moreau, also done by John Chambers, who did Planet of the Apes. And if you see, you can see how, when this is applied, the expression that you can get with that, which, now that I've made a complete ass of myself here. But then also we have a piece that was done by another friend of my, makeup artist, Arnold Gargulio, and this would be used on an armature for a gorilla, and you can see how pliable this is, so that if the armature was underneath, you can get various expressions with that makeup. So what I'm trying to do with the Witch's Dungeon, we're going to do a large expansion of it, hopefully for 1999, and the original Witch's Dungeon format was a maze where you would go through and see recreated scenes based on the classic horror films of Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, and Vincent Price. And what we're planning to do with this larger expansion, be almost 10 times the size of the original, is to have 2 exhibition halls before the maze where you would see these actual movie props that I've collected over the years, and also some that will be loaned to us by some of the makeup artists, because I would really like to share this with the fans so the fans can actually see the real props that were used in the films. I think it gives you a greater appreciation for the artistry that went into the making of these classic films. So we hope to get the support of the fans on this, and if they have any questions about it or would like to be a donor towards the museum, it's totally not for profit. And if they want to write, it's just write to the Witch's Dungeon Classic Horror Museum, and it's 90 Battle Street, Bristol, Connecticut, 06010.
Mary Kelly has an interview with Chris Rondina, who is the writer of this book, Vampire Legends of Rhode Island. He covers a bunch of the different vampires that historically were thought to be vampires here in the state. And it's a really interesting book. This is an autographed copy. He's been hitting the bookstores a lot. And let's go to Mary.
Chris is going to tell us a little bit about his book.
Well, thank
you for being here.
Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Rondina, and this is my book, Vampire Legends of Rhode Island. It is the first complete account of vampire folklore in southern New England that's ever been published, and it's sort of my baby. It's my pet project. It was published about a year ago. I worked on it for about 4 years and researched it for really almost all of my life.
Wow, thank you very much. Now, Chris, how did you get interested in this? What prompted you to?
Ever since I was a little kid, I was a real vampire aficionado. I used to eat Count Chocula cereal, religiously as a kid, and somehow it just never went away. I always loved vampires, and sometime in my later teens, I discovered that Rhode Island especially, I mean, all of New England has vampire folklore, but it seems as though most of it was concentrated in Rhode Island, and I started collecting that information. And over the years, I saw lots and lots of books on ghost stories and things come out, but I was always surprised that no one ever wrote a whole book about vampires or vampires in New England, so I decided finally I would do it.
Well, that's good. Now, what was the first case? What started the ball rolling?
Well, the case that I investigated first is the one that I would think almost everybody who's heard of vampires in New England has heard of, and that's Mercy Brown. Mercy Brown is buried in Exeter, and her case happened in 1892. She's well known as probably the most famous modern vampire incident of vampire folklore. And her case has even possibly inspired, or even did possibly inspire, Bram Stoker's book Dracula in some ways. And what I did is one Halloween night in the mid-1980s, a friend of mine and I, on a lark, decided that we would go out in search of Mercy's grave. And we didn't have too much to go on, but we did, after a little while, manage to find Mercy's cemetery. And it couldn't have been a more perfect setting. It was Halloween night. The cemetery was completely enshrouded in mist. It was like something out of a storybook, and there in the middle of it all, with a little bit of searching, we found Mercy's grave. And ever since then, it's just been steamrolling ahead with the investigation.
Well, that's great. And I understand as part of your research for this book, you took a trip to Transylvania?
I did. In 1986, I took a 3-week journey through the Carpathian Mountains of Transylvania. Transylvania is the central region of Romania, and I decided that it was time to follow the footsteps of Dracula, and so that's what I did. I investigated different locations associated with the historical Dracula, of course, who the fictional Dracula is based on, and discovered, among other things, that the real Dracula is regarded as quite a hero by the people of Romania. Rather than a bloodthirsty vampire, they think of him as almost a King Arthur-like figure who may someday return to save Romania in its hour of need.
My, it's very interesting. And I understand you brought back some souvenirs.
I did. I brought a couple of very interesting pieces, I think. They represent what I like to think of as the two faces of Dracula from a Romanian or Transylvanian perspective. The first piece is an icon, a religious icon that portrays Dracula in an almost saintly manner because, as I say, Dracula is regarded as a hero of Romania and is well known as a political strategist, a very brutal ruler, but one who kept Romania free of Turkish invasion for almost the entire span of his reign. Dracula ruled Transylvania or Romania for oh boy, I don't know the exact figure of years, but he was born in 1431, came to power when he was 17 years old, and stayed in power on and off until he died in 1476. So it's very interesting to see what we think of as, you know, the world's most famous vampire portrayed in this grand princely manner. But the second piece I brought back is, I think, a little bit more interesting. In the mountains of Transylvania, there's a tiny village called Arafu, and looming on a mountain over Arafu is the ruins of the real Castle Dracula. It's not someplace that a lot of tourists go, because most of the tourists go to Castle Bran, which is far more well known when they're looking for a sort of vampire castle. However, Arafu is a tiny little village, and one of the people who lives in Arafu is a man named Ika. And Ika makes a living by selling small souvenirs, soda, and candy to the people who the few people come to visit Castle Dracula. And one of the things that he did is he took raw sheep fur or sheep wool and leather and sewed together this mask, which he considers to be the ghost of Dracula, as it is where he haunts his castle. And so Ika spent a lot of time over the years apparently scaring innocent tourists with this mask, but gave it to me in exchange for my tent, which I had no intention of taking back from Romania. And so he gave me this wonderful piece of folk art, which is, I think, it's interesting to see how the Romanians, in a supernatural sense, perceive Dracula.
Well, that was very interesting. Thank you. Now, you also not only wrote the book, but you also did some illustrations for the book as well.
That's correct.
Would you mind showing us?
Sure. The original illustrations in the book are mine. There's a couple illustrations that are older woodcuts from books from the late 19th century, and a couple other pieces that are not original, but all of the original work is mine. The primary pieces that I have in here are representations of my favorite amongst the vampire cases. This first one is a representation of the earliest vampire case in Rhode Island. the vampire Sarah of the Tillinghast family. And I try and always instill a uniquely New England flavor to the illustrations that I do of vampires, because I think that we too often see the sort of the Transylvanian, epitome of vampires, and then you've got the sort of Anne Rice Lost Boys look. But I like that old-fashioned look. In addition to that, this is a picture that's meant to represent Juliet Rose. The Rose family story is the third major vampire case that's reported in my book, and this is a picture of Juliet preying on an unwilling victim. Not anybody specific, just sort of a general idea of sort of the ghostly vampire attacking its victim. You might notice that she appears to be lingering not on his neck but on his heart. In folklore, vampires, especially Eastern European and American vampires, were more likely to bite you over the heart, which was considered the center of the life force, not on the neck, as we would have learned in later books like Dracula. This, which is also the cover piece, this is a smaller form of it, but this would be Mercy. Mercy, I like to call her the poster girl for Rhode Island vampires, because she is the one that everybody seems to know about. And I see Mercy in a very archetypical sense, because she does epitomize sort of the classic female vampire as portrayed in most fiction, and even as seen in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I believe that she may have inspired.
So, Chris, can we expect a sequel?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm working on right now, honestly. In my various studies, what I've learned is that while Rhode Island does seem to have the greatest concentration of vampire cases, we're certainly not the only state with vampire folklore. There's a little bit of folklore from Connecticut and Vermont in here as well, and what I'm thinking of doing next is expanding this book into a Vampire Legends of New England, building it into a much larger volume containing some of the same material but updating the stories and fleshing out the stories from Connecticut, the stories from Vermont, some stories that I've heard tell of in Massachusetts, and seeing what more we can bring up, because I think that all of New England should be encompassed in a book that deals with vampire folklore, because New England is the center of supernatural activity in America. Everybody knows that.
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I'd also like to thank Rob Kelly and Liz Patry of Barnes & Nobles for setting up this interview for us. Thank you very much.
Oh, hey, you can write to us at CompuServe.com. It's Sci-Fi Journal, CompuServe.com. Right. And don't forget to put the little underlines between Sci-Fi and Journal. And as I said, it's at CompuServe.com.
Yes.
Yes.
To be repetitive.
To be repetitive. As if not to be redundant and say it again, even.
Or you can contact us if we want to use snail mail. It's Rhode Island Science Fiction Club, Post Office Box 9517, Warwick, Rhode Island. 15. 888. And we will please get back.
Welcome to Fantasy TV Show.
I also want to say hello to Don Bosquet, who's just become an honorary lifetime member of the Rhode Island Science Fiction Club. I had a nice conversation with him the other day. So Don, if you're watching, welcome aboard. You're going to get our newsletters and so forth.
I like that. That's that Richard Karn thing from Home Improvement.
You like that?
I don't think so, Mark.
What? So. I think that's about it. So anything else you wanted to add?